Let's go through the average sort of a day in your life of a commercial loan broker. I used to be a commercial loan officer. I've been a commercial loan broker, and I can tell you that they have to wear all kinds of hats. And what that means is that a commercial loan broker, any one day does not always look the same. However, there are some consistent daily activities that you should expect to be participating in order to be successful. So I want to give you an example of a sample way in which you might structure your life as a commercial loan broker. I'm going to run through it as if it's a schedule on my schedule itself, and then we can talk a little bit about any questions you may have. So, a day in the life of a commercial loan broker. I like to start my day somewhere around 8:30. Your day may vary. You may start a little earlier. You may start a little later, depending on if you have kids to deal with, those kinds of things. Uh, I always block off the first half hour, so 8:30 to 9 o'clock, to just review my day ahead. So I go through it. I recommend avoiding answering emails, and instead I use this 30 minutes to sort of look ahead at what's coming up on my schedule. Think about if I need to plan for any really impactful meetings that are going to occur. Look for any value producing activities, those types of things. I use those 30 minutes to look at my calendar, what's coming up, and make sure I've got my head wrapped around where I'm going to need to, uh, block off time to get prepared for various things. An alternative to using this reviewing the day ahead piece in the first 30 minutes is a lot of networking activities happen early in the morning. So you could think of them as coffee mixers. You have chamber events, BNI groups, those types of things. If you're part of those, then of course your first 30 minutes of your day may be taken up with a networking event. If you need to do that, just move up your planning your day a little bit earlier in the day. So maybe you've got a coffee mixer from 8 to 9, maybe from 7:30 to 8, maybe sitting even in the parking lot of the place that you're going to do the mixer. Then plan your day ahead and think about the value activities that you're gonna have to include. In my day, after I've planned the day, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. is when I clear my inbox. Now, that includes both emails, phone messages, texts, those types of things. Constantly checking these things is super counterproductive. So I try and block off, and you're going to see in the sample day, 2 different times during the day to check these things and clear them out of the way. So, one way to combat being counterproductive with constantly checking emails is just to schedule time to do that. So, I use early in the morning, not first thing in the morning, but very early in the morning to go ahead and check messages, texts, that type of thing. Particularly if I'm getting a message from a client of mine or a lender that I'm working with. That way, if I can get back to those folks early enough in the day, we might be able to resolve what is going on by the time I get her back around to checking for further messages. So 8:30 to 9, review my day. 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., clearing inbox, clearing messages, phone calls, that type of thing. I then like to take 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and do some prospecting. Now, this is not with referral sources. I'm going to talk about that in a second. This is strictly for calling people who are not existing clients, but prospective clients that you want to work with. I like the 10 a.m. slot because it's before they start thinking about lunchtime, but it's not so early in the day that I might be interrupting their own planning sessions. So that's why I like 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. to be all about prospecting, making phone calls, sending out emails, those types of high value activity, right? So without prospects, you just don't have a business. 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. works great for that for me. Between 11 a.m. and 12 a.m. is where I dedicate to working on actual deals that I have in the works. So if I've got an SBA loan, I work on that deal for an hour. If I have a different type of loan I'm working on, I'll work on that. So just before lunchtime is when I'm focused on working on deals that I have. I'll reach out to talk to the borrower themselves or the lender, get status updates or give status updates on where we are. That way I don't have borrowers going multiple days without hearing from me. Then, of course, I do take a break. Lunchtime is a good time to do that. So call it 12 to 1. Sometimes I do it 11:30 to 1, that type of thing, but I take a break. Most days, I take some time even in this period to actually get my workout out of the way, but I do recommend at least some of the time from your 12 to 1 p.m. break, not taking it alone. So what I recommend is combining activities. So maybe you're going to go out to lunch, but instead of going by yourself, invite a referral source, invite a client, invite a peer, do some networking, combine your lunches and your networking. Maybe even if you're going to exercise, combine those activities. So if you're a runner and you have a client who loves to run, maybe you could combine activities during this time frame and use it to accomplish multiple things. I like to do these things during the lunch period because even though I'm not the type person who feels like I have to take lunch at a set time every day, a lot of the working world does schedule lunch that way. And so that gives you the freedom to use this time. I'm not always combining these activities during lunchtime. There are plenty of times I do some things just for myself. I may even run some errands or something like that. So I would say 12 to 1 is great for lunch and networking, but also for flex time. When I get back from lunch is when I start to do some marketing activities. So from right around from 1 to 2, I like to do some marketing activities. And what I include there is launching a new landing page or a website, working on a Google ad, some collateral that you're building for your business. This is a great time to do that. One of the reasons I love doing this after lunch is because there's always that sort of come back from lunch sort of counterproductive time. It's hard to get ramped back up into the business. And I do like to just sit down at a computer and work on something high value, like some marketing, right after I get back from lunch. Once I finish that, I mentioned to you earlier, I have 2 times during the day where I clear out my inbox. This is the next time. So from 2 to 3, I'm clearing out my inbox. Now, why don't I do that later in the day? Because then if an emergency comes up right after, I can't really respond to it. So from 2 to 3, I'm back to clearing out messages, phone calls, emails, all those different things that I need to get done. From 3 to 4 is where I block off for networking. Now, I know I talked about coffee mixers in the beginning. This is actually specifically for referral sources. So I talked about coffee mixers for networking. I talked about calling on prospects during the 10 to 11 a.m. time frame. From 3 to 4, I will do some networking with referral sources. So lenders that I work with, accountants, attorneys, all these other folks who work with the type of client that I want to work with. I will build these relationships during this period and maybe do something like send a really thoughtful email to a past client as well. So I use this period to just do some networking and sort of think about a high value activity that can help grow the business. From 4 to 5, I actually plan for the next day. Now that may sound like a huge chunk of time to do a lot of planning. Why don't I do that later? Well, I guard my private time very, very tight. And from 4 to 5, I plan the next day. So an hour's worth of time can sound like a lot. You need to make this count. So what I'm doing is I'm blocking off and scheduling. I'm a fan of scheduling everything. So you will see that every single day of mine is scheduled out as much as I can in advance from minute to minute. I do understand that that fluctuates. I still plan out what I'd like to be doing during a given time. And if I have to move things, of course I can. The reason I like to spend this much time planning for the next day is it makes me super productive the next day. That way, when I come in, I can go straight to work on what I know I'm needing to do. Again, I recognize calendars don't run in perfect 1 hour increments. This is just the idea of a sample day of the value, the activities you can be doing as a commercial loan broker. The point here is to have a highly structured day. If you don't, you'll find yourself sort of meandering between tasks and being, sometimes you'll allow procrastination to jump in. You'll be inefficient with your time. So I just think this is something you should do. One of the ways that you can do things is you can sort of, if you have a task that is less than 15 minutes and it doesn't make sense to chunk off 30 minutes or even an hour for, if you have something that takes less than 15 minutes, you can always sort of use that during a flex time. Maybe you go to lunch for 30 minutes and you take 15 minutes to clear out some of these things. I don't schedule things that are just going to take 15 minutes or less. I just feel like the only reason to block off actual dedicated time is something I'm going to dedicate half an hour to a full hour or two. So I hope that gives you some extra insight and sort of what a sample day, a day in the life of what a commercial broker may look like. And that way you can think more about how you would feel being in this type of career.